Hello Internet, and thank you for joining me for my Is It Any Good Yet series, where I'll be taking games that have had a controversial development or launch cycle and replaying them later down the line to figure out if they are in fact any good yet. In this episode I'll be looking into WildStar, which was released by Carbine Studios and NCSoft in 2014 and enjoyed some well-received success for a short while after. However, player retention began to drop and the game relinquished its subscription model in favour of a free-to-play one. So what exactly happened, and more importantly, have the issues been fixed since then? WildStar is one of those tragic little gems that suffered from an intense case of right game, wrong time. The gameplay and features that this ill-fated MMO displays would have easily put it toe-to-toe with its competitors, where it released 10 years ago. Double jumps before they were cool, player housing and profession questing are just a few of the features that this tantalising yet unfulfilled MMO has to offer, which when coupled with a cute yet aesthetically pleasing graphical style and arcade-esque combat, it almost begs the question as to what exactly went wrong with this game and why the majority of its customer base said tatty bye as it migrated far fucking away, possibly to never be seen again. This is obviously a difficult question to answer simply, however it usually whittles down to end level content and whether or not it's engaging enough to keep people around. In a day and age where everybody and their bloody mum seems to be in a race to punch the max level cap of any progression type game straight in its face, it seems almost laughable that developers always seem to underestimate the necessity of having things to do for these players once they actually bloody get there. Unless you happen to be playing Destiny, then the journey and the outcome seems to weigh in less than an imaginary box of feathers. I wasn't being serious, it was actually a joke. Shh. It's probably worth pointing out that I am blissfully aware of the fact that some of these critical videos don't tend to go down too well with the fans of the games that I am in fact reviewing. To be completely fair to myself, I'm fairly sure that my DayZ video did kind of alright considering, well... fucking... In WildStar's case, the story and the design of the game's later zones seemed to hit a bit of a brick wall, and the large momentum that it managed to drum up beforehand came to a grinding halt, while at the same time causing some disparity between endgame content and who exactly it was supposed to be catering for. WildStar is the cultivation of almost a decade's worth of MMOs, and it attempts to showcase the very best of those features while at the same time filling in the large gaps with shite from others too. Questing really offers nothing new to the table, and more times than not you'll be dragging yourself down an all too familiar path while collecting 10 of these and killing 5 of that. This is where WildStar really does begin to trip over, because rather than being a game that tries to propel itself based on its own merits, it ends up being a game that is trying too hard to be a better version of titles that came before it. The UI looks like something straight out of an add-on addict's wet dream, and will look more than familiar to players who frequent the Curse app for games like World of Warcraft. In fact, the tongue-in-cheek style of storytelling is also very reminiscent of the MMO giant, and arguably the art style of the game itself bears too much of a resemblance to Blizzard's Behemoth. This often means that WildStar offers itself as a WoW alternative in a lot of instances, when it should instead be focusing on becoming a different experience altogether. It almost feels like the developers went out of their way to try and improve on other MMOs' faults, without paying too much attention to where their game was also falling short. Now that the subscription model has been dropped, it will come as a surprise to no one that the game now features a very heavily advertised in-game store, which is filled to the brim with mounts, pets, weapons, hairstyles, and an abundance of other shit that no one needs but I'm sure people pay for. While a necessary source of revenue, I was presented with a quest on how to use said store a mere 10 seconds into actually playing the sodding game. Trust me, I'm a sad little man and I fucking timed it. I've never been a big fan of this particular style of aggressive wallet pushing, and I've always stood by the fact that you should show people your product before begging for their cash. And if customers like what they're shown, then they will go out of their way to open their wallets for it. While it could be argued that the store can be avoided altogether, you're left with the overhanging doubt that you'll never fully receive the premium service from the game, despite how much money you may or may not inject into it. Curious to understand what players wanted from this game, I took to the zone chat to ask, so what tends to be the thing that a lot of vet players wishes this game has? Amongst some of the responses I received, one in particular was, I hear people mostly complain that not enough queue for PvP, which was then followed up by a, think that's the biggest issue, but if we all just queue up more, that's gone, sticky out tongue face. That is of course the problem. If there were more people playing this game, and of course there would be more people queuing up for groups, meaning shorter wait times. While I agree with the sentiment, unfortunately the world doesn't quite work that way, and Carbine Studios were blessed with the chance to actually keep people playing their game, and instead they decided to give up and dress everything up with cute labels and smiling faces while waiting for you to empty your wallets into them like a shovel seller during a gold rush. Regardless of level, I always found myself looking at hour-long queues for PvP and dungeons, and after a quick check on Steam Spy, the figures told me everything I needed to know about how little people are actually playing this game. Yes, I know that while Steam Spy only accounts for players playing through Steam and not from the direct WildStar website itself, it's still a fairly solid aggregate for the population of this game. I wasn't trying to be facetious. So again, the free level boost currently on offer doesn't really do anything to alleviate the issues either. While obviously promoted as an outward attraction for new or returning players to hop into the game and get started with the newly released power of the Primal Matrix content, it offers the most alienated experience from a character boost that I've ever seen. You're instantly given all of your abilities and a flurry of, I'm not joking, fucking dozens of quests to accept, and it really leans towards being a completely put off for people looking to join in the game. While I'd never advise playing an MMO at max level straight away, other games have offered better and more gradual experiences when using the boost, which this title just seems to completely neglect. In fact, that's more or less the crux of my opinion of this title. It's filled with a small community that obviously really care about the game, and some of them have some utterly fantastic ideas about what could be done to improve it. It just comes across like Carbine raised their hands in the air when faced with a difficult choice, said fuck it, and gave in to a free-to-play model with no revamp of what actually caused the issues in the first place. Based on that, I award this game a B for ball ache. Because that's what the experience is, a frustrating glimpse into what could have been the pinnacle of lessons learned, wrapped up into one MMO to rule them all. But instead it wasn't, and despite what others say, the player population speaks utter volumes. And I can only recommend this as an alternative to better titles if you really don't want to pay a sub fee or upfront costs for those games instead. If you managed to stick around this long, then thank you very much for your time. If you enjoyed what you see, then remember to hit that like button and subscribe, and check out some of the other shite that I produce on a weekly basis. And if you didn't enjoy it, then good, don't watch them. Thanks again, I'm Jordan from Cult Geek, over and out.